Welcome back. Another episode of Living in My Mind. I'm Dennis Henning, the host. You can call or text if you have any questions, you need any help. We're always willing to do the best we can to be of service. Today we're going to talk about mental health and people getting older. It's always interesting when you come across many different people, and people in their 30s and 40s say, gee, I feel old, or gee, I feel this, or I'm getting older. Age to me is a state of mind. I'm 62 years old. I'm gifted with a lot of mental health issues physically. I look the way I look. I take care of myself. I don't feel old. I don't have those moments where you get up and your back is hurting. I don't have those moments where I have a memory lapse. A lot of it is due to taking care of yourself. When it comes to food, it comes to exercise, it comes to relationships, it comes to separating yourself from everything else so that other things don't affect you negatively. So we have some questions that people sent in, and Mark, my producer, is here today. Mark?
Yes, so we put out the ask for questions on aging and mental health, and we have 20 questions. So I got those here for you. And
let's see what people ask, and let's see if I have any idea what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, and you've never seen these, so these are right off the top.
That's true.
All right, here we go. Here's question 1. How does aging typically impact an individual's mental health?
You read a lot of scientific research. You read a lot of people who do surveys. I think it should be individual. A lot of people, when they age, they think, my goodness, I always say people always say I'm on the lighter side of life. There are people who pass away when they're kids, pass away in their teen years, in their 20s, 30s. I never look at life as I only have a certain amount left. I look at life as I'm going to enjoy whatever time I have. I think when you start thinking about, my God, I can't do these things, or I'm too old to go traveling, I'm too old to get into a relationship, I'm too old to change, that frame of mind affects you mentally, also affects your health. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, a lot of people I come across, I go into an office once a week, maybe twice, and usually everybody's in their 30s. They're sitting at their desks, they're working, they're 8 hours a day, they're eating the worst, most disgusting food in the world. They like it, but it affects their thinking. It affects their ability to perform. It affects their ability to do their job, because all the different foods you put in your body affect us mentally. And if you're not aware of that, when you get older, your body's going to get used to it. Your body's not going to really know what the hell's going on if you've never tried to treat it good. So many people, when they get older, want to lose weight. Nothing wrong with that. Think about it when you're younger. What you do younger affects what you do older. Now, I'm not saying there's a cure-all. I'm not saying you're going to make it happen. But I believe it's the way of looking at yourself and realizing age is just a number, and there are many people who prove it's a number. But it's not just about working out. It's about you doing things. Keep your mind busy cognitively. Do things. If you don't have money, people say, I don't have money, I can't do this. Walking's free. There's many things you can do to keep your mind going. Oh, I'm too busy, I have kids. No, you're too busy because you make excuses. You're busy, but you can find some time. So when you get older, don't wait to get older and think that there's things you can't do. Don't put a limit on yourself. It's not about your age. It's a limit you put on yourself. Hopefully that's something that can help.
Absolutely. All right. Number 2, what are common mental health challenges faced by the elderly?
I think a lot of it is people judge the mental health because they're older. Their bodies are changing. Mental health issues might have a little memory gap, might be forgetful. The depression they've had for years is going to affect them more now physically as well as mentally. That when you get older, I think it's one thing people don't realize. The body changes. Your skin changes. You get a little more wrinkly. Your body isn't the way it was when you were in your 20s and 30s and 40s. So many people get depressed. They want that body. I hear some people say, I wish I had the body I had when I was 20. Well, I'm glad I don't have the brain or the body I had when I was 20 because I didn't know what to do with either one of them back then. I think that from my point of view, when it comes to people, you really have to take a look at yourself and individualize yourself rather than take everything out there. We're always looking for answers from the outside when the answers are really on the inside. Be comfortable with yourself. Love yourself. Take care of yourself. Know what you need and know what you want. But the most important thing is if you keep your mind busy, your mind stays young until the day you go. I really believe that. And I know it's true in many different ways from people who've been in my life.
Okay, number 3, how can we differentiate between normal cognitive decline and signs of dementia?
You know, all the research out there talks how dementia is getting more and more, I want to use the word popular. Many people are getting it. With dementia, it only gets worse. Cognitive issues are things that you can help reprogram. You can help retrain the brain. It's the way in which the brain makes connections in order to remember what is learned. That's basically what cognitive is. I'm sure there are other people with scientific definitions and more in depth, but when it's dementia, that's when you forget things. It's two different things. The cognitive ability changes. It's less. It gets less. You're not able to remember things. You get frustrated. I've had a couple of people in my life that had onset dementia. And watching it from the outside is just devastating because once it gets full blown, they don't know. But the dementia is when it just starts to really go to where you can't remember, as anybody knows. You forget things. You don't know where you're at. You don't know who's in front of you. So they're two separate ones. But when it comes to cognitive behavioral, the more work you do on it, the more repetition you do on it, you're not going to stop dementia. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But the more you keep your brain active, the better chance you have of basically having an opportunity to live a really good life. Dementia comes from more medical, and a lot of it has to do with the brain, which I have no clue because I'm no damn doctor, and I've never played one.
Not even on TV.
No. Maybe in a fantasy, but not on TV.
All right, number 4, what strategies can older adults use to maintain their mental health?
Interact with other people. Play games. My mother, before she passed away, was in a facility. They played bingo. They had artwork. They got together and did group conversations. Keep your mind active. When you isolate, you isolate. When you spend time by yourself, you're by yourself. Work with people who are going to keep you moving forward when engaging. That's the beautiful thing. Don't just sit and watch numbing TV. Don't just sit and do the crossword. Crossword's good, but interacting with other people, doing games, doing things that can keep you going, talking to other people, sharing stories. The more interaction you have with other people, the better chances you have to help yourself with your memory, but also feel good about yourself. Because if you feel good about yourself, that's a beautiful thing. If you feel depressed, my mother, before she passed, there was a time where she got depressed. She didn't want to leave her room, and you could see the decline. But when we took her out and she got to see her great-grandson, JT, the smile on her face, it brings back. So work on bringing back memories. Talk to them about the past. Talk to them about the beautiful things. They might not remember, but if you bring it up, you're going to see a smile on many people's face. That's just what I've experienced.
Number 5, how does social isolation affect the mental health of aging populations?
It's devastating. It just devastates the elderly. It devastates any age, but the elderly especially. They've got no one. There are many times I go into my mom's place. You have all these wonderful people. Families would never even come. Families would pay, but they wouldn't come. It's like out of sight, out of mind. That's pretty shitty freaking people to have in your life. But when you isolate, the only thing we have is ourselves. Then we start thinking things. We don't think. We numb ourselves. Even the elderly, one of the biggest things I saw at my mom's place, a lot of the people when they were older and they isolated, they would eat a lot of sweets. Interesting. Go by and they'd be having a lot of desserts. It made them feel good. It numbed them. So no matter the age, especially the elderly too, you're going to find ways to numb yourself when you isolate. But if you don't have the ability to interact with people, that isolation is going to lead to, more issues mentally and physically. And as we all know, when something's physically issue, it can affect you mentally, and something physically, it can affect you mentally. Yes.
All right. What role does physical health play in the mental well-being of older adults?
The dopamines, it gets your body working. It makes your mind work. It's repetition. When you're sitting around and you're doing nothing, your body's going to ache. Your blood's not going to flow the right ways. Your arteries aren't going to be, as open, if that's the correct term. When you're doing physical exercises, it helps you mentally. You feel better about yourself. It's an accomplishment. It's something that you're doing. You can tell yourself, hey, I did this today. My mother used to tell us she got up and stood up 5 times. The accomplishment in her mind was just beautiful. Sadly, my mom couldn't get out of a wheelchair, but she told us that she could. We never said you didn't do it, but it made her feel good to tell us that she did because we were always worried about her. You have to constantly be moving, not 24/7, but when your life is sedated, and you're not able to do things, you can do exercises with your arm. You can do physical therapy. You can do some type of therapy that can help you. But the more active you are, the more your mind's going to be active. And the more active you are physically, your body's going to react in a better way. Because if there's something wrong with you and you're not trying to do something, and physically, many people can't, that's an issue. They physically can't. But if you try when you can, you have a better chance of feeling better, maybe living longer, and enjoying life to a better degree than what you might think you only can do because you're limited.
Number 7, how can caregivers support the mental health of aging individuals?
Treat them like they're human beings. Don't treat them like they're an older person who can't do anything, who can't get up, who can't eat, who can't feed themselves. Don't always have to do everything for them. Help them do things, but treat them with respect. I've seen so many caretakers that work in facilities such as my mom that are rude, mean, they get manipulative, they get authoritative. And when people are elderly and they're in places like my mom is, they get scared. They fear people. So what do? They're not going to say anything. There's a couple of people that treated my mom bad. My mom's like, don't you say anything. I don't want them kicking out. Mom, they're not going to kick you out of here. Well, those people, I don't want them around. Engage them. Don't just treat them like they're someone that you're getting a job to take care of an elderly person or someone who's an invalid or someone who can't do anything. Treat them like a person. Talk to them. Engage them. Don't just give them their meds or give them their meals. Treat them like a person, and sometimes treat them like you want to be treated. It's amazing when you're dealing with the elderly, if you engage in the stories you get from their past. It's not just about their past. The stories they tell you, you can relate to, you can learn, you can become a better person and create more empathy than what you had in the beginning. I learned so much more empathy going to my mother's place and hearing her stories and other people's stories than I've ever met or had the opportunity in my life.
Number 8, what are effective mental health interventions for elderly patients?
I'm not sure what the answer actually to that one is because I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, but I know it's all about engagement. It's talking. It's doing things that get them active mentally. It's getting them thinking. Like I said before, it could be crossword puzzles. It could be playing bingo. It could be watching TV. It could be a group. It could be something that gets them active. Those are interventions that help. Talking to them. Sometimes I sit and talk to my mom for an hour and she'd maybe say one thing, but I kept talking to her. She had to think. I could see in her eyes that she knew what I was saying because the look on her face, she's like, oh, Denny, what the hell are you doing now? So I always knew that. She never had verbal at some point, but she knew that. But you have to engage in. That's going to always help. Any type of engagement is going to help you mentally. That's the important thing from where I've experienced in my life.
All right. Number 9, how does retirement impact mental health and what can be done to ease the transition?
That's an interesting question for many different people because it's different for everybody. There are people who work their whole life to retire. I hear people all the time, I can't wait, I'm going to retire. I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that. Why? You can do it now. If you have to wait to retire to enjoy life, then there's something wrong with that. Many people retire and many people never retire completely. They do odd jobs, they do this, they do stuff around the house, they do gardening, they take up hobbies, they travel. So what are you retiring from? When we're talking about retiring from a job, one particular job you do, that's one thing. But when you're retiring from something, but you pick other things to do or you do consulting, I don't know many people who actually retire and don't do something. But retirement also, at certain times, there are people who've talked to me and said, look, I reached a certain age, now they don't want me. I've reached a certain age, now I have to retire. I work with the Catholic Church, and many of the individuals I've worked with at a certain time, it's retirement for them. They can retire, do what they want, but the church wants them to keep going because they believe that they need to be of service still. It affects their health. At a certain time in your life, you want to be able to just breathe. Sleep in when you want, eat what you want, go where you want, do what you want, not answer to different people. A lot of times, I always talk to people about this, retirement to me sometimes is like a prison mentality. In prison, your meals are there for you. You know what your schedule is 24/7. It's never really going to change as long as you're alive. When you're working a job, 9 to 5, you pretty much have everything almost the same. 9 to 5, on Friday, you go out to dinner. Certain things that you do, it's a regiment, it's a structure, but it's something you just get used to, so therefore you don't change it. In retirement, many people think about this. If your mind's what's helped you with your work, your thinking, now all of a sudden you don't have to. Find other hobbies. Find something that gives you that same stimulus, mentally, physically, or whatever you're trying to do, and enjoy yourself. But it's a very difficult time for many people when they're forced to retire or when people have to retire because of a medical condition. It's very difficult as well. It plays on your mind extremely, extremely difficult for many people to really differentiate when you retire to do something and do nothing, or when you're forced to retire. Those are different ways to look at it, in my opinion. I got a lot of opinions, I guess.
We like it. Number 10, what is the role of grief and loss in the mental health of older adults?
It's devastating. My mother's place example, we all knew, and the people there knew, that they were going there to die at some point. That to me was devastating when we first put my mom in there. I went there, I looked around, I was like, I had a hard time going there until the day she died because I knew the people were there to die. Well, we're all here to live, but we're going to die. But knowing that everybody was there because of health issues, or even families, some families put their family members in there who didn't need to be there, but the families had control. They took control of their lives. But I just think that as you get older, my mother loved her friends there, but when her friends died, she had a different take on it. Well, I know it's going to happen. At my age, when my mother died, I'm devastated, still devastated. We just had the year anniversary, April 4th, of my mom passing. It was just a difficult day in every aspect of my life. But when you get older, you start to realize, gee, my friends are gone. I've had my mother's friend, hers, 60-something years passed away. And you think about, God, 60-something years, you had a friend for 60-something years? I think that's amazing. So when you get older, a lot of people do realize, too, that things are changing. The people they like, the people they love are leaving them for whatever reason. It's devastating to a lot of older people, especially my mom's friends that I would talk to and everything. Many of the people, when they're older, when they've outlived their kids, it's devastating because many people say you should never outlive your kid. I don't know the story of that. I don't know what's behind that for many people. I can understand that. But it's devastating when they start realizing, I'm coming. I'm next. My mother said to my brother and I one day, we were there, and she said, you boys do know I'm going to die. And my brother said, Mom, we're all going to die. She said, no, I'm going to die. It was a simple thing for anybody and everybody, but the reality was I never wanted to deal with it. I never wanted to believe it. To the day she died, I stayed away, and my brother said, you need to get over here. I got over there, and that's when she passed away. But a lot of the elderly realize and know that at a certain time, it's inevitable that you're going to die, and they start losing hope. Many, my mom, some of her friends, are losing faith. They start to isolate more. My mom didn't want to talk about anything at a certain point, even before she got to the point where she was going to pass away, even when she was cognitive, even when she could speak. One of the greatest things, she just loved me being there. We would watch old cowboy movies. We never have to talk, but we had an amazing bond watching those movies. So it's always very interesting how people look at things differently. When you get older, you start seeing things differently at certain ages. Many people say, I wish I knew that. No, you don't wish you knew it earlier, because this is how your life is meant to be. Good, bad, and indifferent. There's certain stages we had to live to get to where we are today.
Yeah, I always wondered that. And I've never asked that question to somebody, say in their 80s or 90s or 100, how it feels to outlive most of their friends. Like like everybody is gone, and they have hopefully a new wave of people that they know. But
I always told myself, when my mom goes, I'm going, because my mom's the one person in my life. It's like me, I'm single. My family, my brother has his kids, his grandkids, everybody. You got someone. I don't have anybody. But I always told myself that would be my plan. And then I realized that I didn't need to. Maybe there'll be a chance for me in certain ways in life. But you start realizing the people around you, there are people who don't make friends because they're afraid to lose them. If you had abandonment issues or you've been treated bad by people, you're going to not want to get close to people because you're going to be afraid this new person might treat you the same way, or they just might abandon you. A lot of times the negative residuals that we go through, we believe that it's going to happen again. There's no proof sometimes, but we believe it. I know I've done that in my life. I believe those, so therefore I create it. So therefore I can't be friends with you. I can't fall in love with you because you're going to do what somebody else did. And then I set myself up for failure. But it's hard to realize that. Yeah, it's difficult for many people. And many people don't want to be honest with themselves. That's the toughest part. They just don't.
Yeah. All right. Number 11. How can elderly individuals adapt to the psychological changes brought on by aging?
To me, again, it's one of those questions that's individual. You're going to age. No ifs, ands, or about it. Think about it. When people are young, they can't wait to be 16 so they get a license. They can't wait to be 18 because they can drink. They can't wait to be 21. Then when you get to 21, what is it? Oh, I can't wait to be 30, 40. Many people whine and cry. I'm going to be 30. It's so bad. I'm going to be 40. Hey, I'm just happy to be alive each day and breathe. I'm looking forward. Hopefully I get to my 63rd birthday. I just think it's a frame of mind of a person that when you're getting older, there's so many still beautiful things you can do. There's nothing you can't do at 70 that you can't do in your 20s. We're talking about sex. We're talking about work. We're talking about travel. Obviously, your health plays a big part. The way you take care of yourself when you're younger is going to affect the way you take care of yourself when you're older. It's also going to affect your health. There are many things that are hereditary. I'm not taking that away, but people don't consider that. They always think, I can do better, or I'm going to. A good example, I work with a priest, and this was years ago. Throughout his whole life, he lost over 800 pounds. He always said, well, Dennis, I did it once. I could do it twice. My response was, Father, do you realize the effect it's had on your heart, your kidneys? You have diabetes. You have all these different things. So you might feel it's an accomplishment, which it is to some small degree, but you still set yourself up for failure. So it's taking care of yourself when you're younger so that you have an opportunity to take care of yourself when you're older. It's not just about getting old. It's about the journey to getting there. And always keep your mind engaged. That's the most important, not just with the television, with the book, other people. Other people, it's important to engage. I like to talk to people. Hell, most people think who the hell's this idiot? But I will engage you in anything because I like to learn. I like to have fun. But if I get an opportunity, I'd like to learn something about you. You might not care about anything about me. That's not the point. I like to learn, but also keeps me engaged, keeps my mind going because the voices in my head, and believe me, I do have voices in my head, I'm not joking, being smart, that are conflicting with every issue in life. But it's just about engagement is what I believe is the right thing to do. Not easy, but it's something that's the right thing to do.
And that leads us into our next question. Number 12, what are the psychological benefits of active social engagement for the elderly?
Makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel wanted. It makes you feel desired. We're not talking about sex. We're talking about desired by others. People want to hear what you have to say. People want to learn from you. But also it's fun. You tell stories. You engage. My mom's place, she had a group of 4 ladies, they all ate together. First time I ever sat down, one lady goes, you're the black sheep. I'm like, what the hell? My mom looks at me and goes, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm like, Mom, the only way and I've said this before, the only way she knew I was a black sheep was because you said something. But the reality is, when I was around them, they were snarky to each other. These people were mean. My mother thought she was ahead of everything. That's Bob. Bob's wife left him 20 years ago. Bob's wife. That's Susan. She's having an affair with Jim. I'm like, well, how old's Susan? She's 80. How old's Jim? 92. I'm like, what the fudge? So you engage, you have fun. These ladies would sit around and badmouth everybody. But to them, wasn't badmouthing. They're just letting you know the story. It was adorable to hear them talk. They called me Denny because my mother called me, they like Denny, You don't want to sit next to that lady. She's not nice. And I'm thinking, you're bad-mouthing this lady. This one lady said to me, a dear friend of mine, she goes, we're not bad-mouthing anybody, Denny. We're telling you the truth. It was hilarious. So they need to engage, communicate, don't isolate. That's one thing that affects mental health. And talk about what you learn. Talk about your likes, your dislikes, all those different things. But the one thing I realized, even though it was a little annoying at times, they were talking. Their minds were working. Whether they were diabolical little old ladies, but their minds were working, and you could tell that they enjoyed the conversation. Because one thing I knew from sitting with my mom and her friends, each one of them could not wait for the other person to stop talking so they can have an opinion. And I just had to sit there and pray to Jesus I could leave. Yes. I wish I was still able to go there, though.
Absolutely. Yeah, your mom sounds awesome. I love hearing that those conversations with her and her friends. All right, number 13. How does the perception of aging in society influence individual mental health outcomes?
We live in a society where everybody thinks about people being young are the ones who are make things happen. Well, you think about it, the greatest companies, the greatest inventions were by people who were older. They might have invented it when they were younger. They've perfected it as they got older. Some of the greatest minds in technology, in politics, in religion, in philosophy are older men and women here and throughout the world. I think that's something that many people don't really look at, that it doesn't matter your age. Again, it's going back to the same thing. I'm dealing with someone who's a therapist in her 60s, and she's going back to school. She's going to get her master's, and she's having a blast. She's engaging with people. She thought because she was divorced and had 4 kids who were all adults and all in the medical field, but she's meeting new people. She's having a blast. Her husband passed away. She's like, I don't know what my husband would think. Well, if your husband would think that you should just sit home and not do anything, what a shitty husband he was. But you have to go out and engage and meet people, continue doing things, continue to challenge yourself. And I think a lot of times in our society, we look at people who are older. Oh, well, they're old. We try to throw them away. There's ageism. People lose jobs because they turn a certain age. People are turned down because they have a certain age. Everybody wants a young energy. Really? I work in an industry. All the young men and women who are in my industry, whether they're licensed therapists or different positions, no, none of them I would hire, because they still haven't experienced life. They've read a book, they passed a test, they become a licensed person, but you got to have some life experience, not just read a damn book in order to help a human being. So I think it's shitty what this country does in many ways, in many countries, getting rid of their elderly. When you throw the elderly, it's kind of like me. I've got a jacket I've had 40-something years. It was my mother's. That jacket gives me such a smile and a feel good. Why would I throw it away? And why do people throw away the elderly? That's the shitty question. And there are many people who don't have an answer.
Number 14, can you discuss the prevalence and treatment of depression in older adults?
Well, from what I've experienced with elder, and it depends on what you're talking about. People in their 50s and 60s, people might consider, holy Jesus, mother God, I just stubbed my toe and that hurts like a mother. And what's elderly? 70s, 80s, 90s? That's what I consider elderly. Many people consider elderly once you hit 50, for crying out loud. But I think that the mental health issues, again, it comes back to how you think about yourself, what you're doing, how active you are, what situations you put yourselves in, and how you address these situations. Because when you think of yourself as elderly, it's interesting, some different churches, they have people who are in a position of authority. They're called the elders. Just because you're older doesn't mean you know more than me. Just because you're older doesn't mean I'm going to respect you. Just because you're older doesn't mean I'm going to give a shit about you. That's how society treats us and treats people. So don't think because someone's older that you have to listen to them. And because someone's older, don't think you have to listen to somebody who's younger than you. If you make up your own mind and you have the cognitive ability to do that, that's a wonderful thing. But people, when they get older, tend to want to fall in that category. I'm old. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I'm in so much pain. Well, you think about it. Why are you in pain? Is it something you brought upon yourself, or something nature brought upon you, or medical? So there's different ways to look at it. That's just the way I have seen it and feel about it.
All right, number 15. What mental health resources are specifically geared towards the elderly?
There's a lot of organizations that help the elderly. They're all out there. If you're on Social Security, there's many organizations. There's many nonprofits. You just have to look them up. Have people that you know look them up for you. If you can't do it, if you don't know how to use a computer, whether it's physically or you just never have, there's many organizations that really are standout organizations that care and want to help the elderly in many different situations, whether it's finances, whether it's food, whether it's shelter. They're all out there. There's a lot of paperwork that has to get done, but they are there. So you just have to, it's like me cooking pasta. I know it's done when I throw it against the wall and it sticks. I just keep going. So keep looking, but there are many organizations. I don't know them off the top of my head, but I do know I've dealt with some that do help the elderly. Yes.
Number 16, how can families and communities better support the mental health needs of their aging members? Treat
them just like they want to be treated. Don't treat them as if they're elderly and they can't do anything for themselves. Don't treat them as if they're, they don't mean anything or they don't matter. My mother, when she couldn't drive, was devastating for her. Many people I've talked to, when they stopped driving, it was devastating because that's independent. Don't take away their independence. Allow them to be who they are. Take them places. Engage them. Don't just say, well, grandma, she's 70, she can't go anywhere. Invite them places. Give them opportunities. But treat them like a person. That's the easiest thing for me to say. Treat them like a person. Don't take away their dignity. And many people do. They got a bank account. Don't tell them you have to take over their bank account. If they're not capable, that's a different story. But don't try to take over their life. Because what do they have left is what they have left. Work with them on it, but don't take away their dignity. Don't make them feel less than because they're getting older. And do not ever tell them you can't do this. Because once you tell them they can't do it, they're going to continue. It's like a child. When you tell a child and you beat a child down, they can't do this, or you tell them how negative life is and you tell them this and that, they're going to believe it. So don't do that. Have the decency, treat them equal. And if issues pop up, then address them. But don't take away their dignity. That's what they have left.
And they appreciate it so much. My great grandmother, my abuelita, she lived to be 101.
Wow,
and, yeah,
how beautiful.
Yeah, and I remember her stopping driving, maybe like close to 90. But when she started declining after she had fallen and started declining, my mother, who's a rock star and shows up for people like this, I've really learned a lot from her. But she brought her she was in a non-assisted living place, and and then they brought her into my family's home, and in the dining room they made a bed for her to stay for a while.
Yep.
As she was slowly declining. And at one moment, after years of always visiting her once a week, going to see her, having my sisters go there, myself, my dad, she looked up to my mom when she was on some of her last days, and she looked up to my mom and said, "How will I ever repay you?" And she was just so grateful. Like, obviously this is the end of her life and she's declining, but they just appreciate it so much. I've learned so much from that experience.
You hit it on the head. There are many people who put their family members away. They send them away to assisted living. If they're in assisted living, I could understand it's stressful taking care of people. My brother and his wife and my nephews and family took care of my mom for years. I just was someone to help financially. I stayed away. Number one, being a coward. Number two, for other reasons. But once my mother went into the assisted living, it was a little bit better. I knew the day my mom died, it was such a relief for my brother and my sister-in-law because they were there every day. They had to deal with it every day. They had to see it every day. I couldn't see it every day. It's just nothing I could do. But don't throw people away because we have that fear our whole life. But when you get older, people are like, oh my God, they're going to put me away. If you can bring them in, bring them in. If you can take care of them, if you can't, it's understandable. Because if you can't and you try, you're only going to jeopardize them and yourself more. But it's such a beautiful. My mother was so grateful for everything until the day she couldn't start talk. She had so many friends coming to see her, kids that she took care of in grade school who were in their 40s and 50s come to see Grandma Nette. And, it's everlasting. People have an everlasting effect on us. But, just treat the people in your life with respect and love. Think about how you want it. Do you want to be treated like that? That's a big, important thing to look at.
Absolutely. Number 17, what are the challenges in diagnosing and treating anxiety disorders in the elderly?
All of us have fear, and fear is what creates anxiety. It all depends on the symptoms. It depends on what they're dealing with, how they're going through things, what their fears are, what they're feeling anxious are. It depends on if they have a therapist who knows what they're talking about. It also depends on if they're dealing with a therapist who's dealt with the elderly. There are a lot of symptoms that mask and seem like other things, but I do believe that everybody deals with things. I know everybody deals with some sort of anxiety. When people get older, they start to worry. Do I have a place to live? Do I have food? Are they going to love me? Are they going to like me? Who's going to pay my bills? My mother was that all the time. We got to pay these bills, Danny. We got to pay these bills. Who's going to pay for this? I don't want you paying for it. I don't want you going out of your way. And I explained, Mom, never going out of your way. I don't want to say what I need to say because it might throw me out. Mom, no one's throwing you out. It was those types of things. I think when people get older, they have a lot of anxiety of what's going to happen to them, if they're going to be taken care of, if somebody cares. And it's important that people let them know that you're going to be there for you. You're going to be the best you can. Now, I don't know. Everybody has limits, whatever you can. But that anxiety builds as you get older. I think to myself, I'm 62. Am I going to be by myself the rest of my life? If I go to bed tonight and I don't wake up, who's really going to notice for a period of time? Anybody going to really care? So engage. Make sure you have people in your life. That's the most important thing. Isolation doesn't help, but please engage with the elderly. Please engage talking to them. Please ask them what their needs are and have fun. Don't make it like it's a chore, like you're going to work to take care of someone you love.
All right, number 18. How important is intergenerational interaction for the mental health of older adults?
Ah, it's beautiful. When my mother would take her little great grandson, JT, put him on her lap, my mother would come to life. We truly believe my mother was alive for an extra year, baby, because of this little boy, getting to see him, the look on the face. She'd call me, she goes, JT's coming. Or she'd text me. And I'm like, you were more excited over a 2-year-old than me? Of course. It was just funny, the interaction. But you learn. You can learn from the elderly. They can learn from you. The energy you bring to meeting with someone, talking with someone, makes them feel good, makes them feel important, makes them know somebody cares, makes them know somebody wants to learn from them. Just a conversation. A while back, my brother, we went to a restaurant, and there was a man sitting by himself. We were eating dinner. He's probably in his 70s or 80s. The waitress said he comes in all the time by himself. His wife had passed away. And essentially, my brother bought him dinner anonymously because my brother's just that type of beautiful person. The smile on this man's face was just amazing. He just felt good that someone noticed him other than someone having him there to buy a meal and pay. It's like 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night. People are thinking, why is this older man here by himself? Because he wanted to be. He had a really fun meal. He enjoyed the hell out of it. His barbecue was all over everything. But it's just something like that. Do things for people, the little things. But when you engage them, whether it's your grandma, your grandpa, your aunt, your uncle, your mom, your dad, just friends that you might know, it always makes you feel good. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel wanted, needed, and desired as human beings. Everybody wants that, and everybody needs that.
Well said. Number 19. How do changes in life roles and identity affect the mental health of the elderly?
Well, you think about it. You're born, someone's wiping your ass, feeding you. You live your life. When you get older, almost turns to the same thing at a certain time. When someone is older and they can't take care of themselves, they got to wear Depends. They got to have someone feed them. Their teeth are bad. They have arthritis. They can't move. They gave birth to you, whether it's to you individually or someone. And now you're taking care of your parents or your loved one. It's a whole role reversal. They brought you in. They took care of you for a certain amount of time. Now it's your turn to take care of them. Many people don't know how to do that. Many people are afraid. Many people get nervous. And cognitively, it's going to change. Their memories, their thoughts, their ideas. They're going to be, my mom was grumpy as shit all the time. Always used to make me nervous, but that was just my mom. I always thought, damn, you're just grumpy. No, that's just who my mom was. And it might appear that they're angry. And of course they're going to be angry because they can't do anything. My mom was stuck in a wheelchair in bed. She couldn't walk. But let me tell you, sometimes she'd call me and say, Denny, I walked 5 steps. Now, I knew she didn't walk 5 steps because she couldn't physically, medically. But I would engage her. I'm like, that's good, Mom. Tomorrow we're going to go for 5. I'd say, Mom, I'm coming up tomorrow. We're going to go for a walk. And she'd say, I only do it every other day. she was great. She had an answer for everything. My mom had a quick wit. I mean, it was beautiful. But engage them. That's the most important thing. Keep engaging them because that's what helps with the mental health. If they're depressed, listen to them. Help them find solutions. Keep them active. If you keep someone active, it's going to be a lot easier to help them if you let them just sit there or sulk or go backwards.
And number 20, what are innovative therapies or treatments that are showing promise for improving mental health in the elderly?
The answer is I don't have an answer for that because there's so many things. It depends on who you ask. There are drug companies that think that they're making pills that are going to help your memory. Again, I don't think it's anything like that. It's how you live your life from the beginning, in the middle, and towards the end. It's how the people in your life, how you choose to do the things if you want to. There are people, I had an uncle who passed away. They named me after him. Pathetic human being. Criminal, all kinds of different things. It was kind of like chip off the old block, I guess. But the reality is just a mean human being when he got older. Just mean. And he isolated a lot because no one wanted to be around the son of a bitch. And if you're that way, you deserve it. And it's kind of sad. But I don't really know what the new things are. I don't really pay attention to that because there's always something new. In my field, there's always something new to treat somebody. There's always a book, as I've said before. There's some spiritual leader. There's some talk person. Find somebody that you can gain from. Everybody can learn from somebody. Not everybody needs to talk to the same person get the same treatment, have the same ideas, the same thing, gets a little old. But there are great things out there. If you have questions, engage us. If we don't have answers, we'll look for them. We'll do whatever we can. You know, the numbers on the bottom down here, hopefully some of this information made sense, helped you. If not, then, you know, it is what it is. But to the best of my ability, we answer some of these questions to some of the people that asked. A lot of them seem to be alike, but to me, they weren't. And so thank you very much for watching and listening, and hopefully we can be of service. Have a wonderful day, and thank you.